Hello and welcome to 10 Minute Takes. This is where we give you the rating first and then we tell you what we liked and didn't like about the movie we watched. Today is White Boy Rick. Our rating system is either a see it, wait for it, or a pass it. You ready to rate this one?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So here we go. 3, 2, 1.
See
pass
it.
it. I wanted to like this movie so much. I really
that was
did.
A big...
I really wanted to like this because that trailer was awesome. White Boy Rick tells the story of a 14-year-old boy in the 80s that rises up from being a local arms dealer with his dad to being a drug kingpin within the gangs of Detroit. That's a true story. And that's pretty much it. I mean, that's the story it tells. For me, White Boy Rick is at its best in its sentimental moments, but for me, the execution wasn't there. And the movie, for me, is at its worst when it's just downright boring, which for me was pretty much most of the movie.
See, I wasn't bored. I don't think I was ever really bored in the film. The sentimental moments were really important. I thought that those were done really well.
Yeah.
And the storyline seemed for me to flow nicely. I thought that it was a good film. I was entertained the entire time. I liked it a lot better than The Predator.
See, I like The Predator more.
I
will rewatch The Predator before I rewatch White Boy Rick.
I won't rewatch White Boy Rick, but just because I like a movie and I say see it doesn't mean I want to see it again.
No, that would mean it's worth seeing. For me, this film, when comparing it to other films of this ilk that have come out in the last couple of years, we talked about this
really
before.
Good ones.
We've had American Animals, we had I, Tonya,
I know.
and now White Boy Rick, all within a span of a little over a year. White Boy Rick is easily the weakest of those three for me.
I would agree.
And for me, I just never really cared about any of the characters outside of maybe Matthew McConaughey, which Matthew McConaughey in this movie is fantastic. He transformed for this movie.
Stunning.
He went from Matthew McConaughey to Mullet McConaughey, and he is great. Mullet McConaughey in this is fantastic.
He was really good.
He was great, but the storyline jumps around from... It's not that it jumps around in time at all, but we go from moment to moment without connective tissue from moment to moment, and I got lost and confused at quite a few times in this film. And because I felt like I was watching stuff that didn't have any context, I got very bored because I didn't know what I was watching. For instance, there's a moment where they go to Vegas in this film. Had no idea they actually went to Vegas. And then there's some gang stuff that happens, and I didn't know why the gang stuff was happening. It wasn't clear to me. And I felt like the film didn't make it clear. And I started tuning out, and the film to me just got uninteresting because it didn't lay out what it was doing very clearly. And then during Rick's rise in the gang world also wasn't that clear to me. He went from, like, there's a point where you also got lost where he does work for the cops. They have him as like an undercover sort of drug dealer working with these guys. And then at some point he stops working with them, but it's not clear that he stopped working with them.
I will say, I think at the end of the movie, it makes the FBI look like they were trying to target him. But you don't ever really get the feeling you get the feeling that that's what they were doing, but you're unsure on how they got to that point. Because there is a point where the FBI stops working with him, and then he does things on his own, but you never got that clear line. So when they were really going after the FBI saying that it was their fault, I really felt for the family, and it wasn't until after we had really started talking that I realized that there was no fine line on when the FBI stopped working with him and he was doing it on his own. So those moments were unclear, and I think that was the point of the film, was to show that the FBI were doing this to this 17-year-old kid over the course of 2 years.
Yeah.
3 years.
Yeah, and things that I've read after we saw, it seems like a lot of people are divided on this film. Seems kind
Yeah.
of like a split. A lot of people really, really like it. Some people really, really don't like it. For me, I fall on the side of people that really didn't like it. None of the characters really gelled with me, even though the acting in this movie is fantastic. None of the characters actually resonated with me. There's one scene that, when it came up later on in the film, I was like, this is what I wish this film felt like the whole way. And it's the scene with Rick and a little baby. That scene, that whole scene, Rick, his dad, the baby, was very sentimental.
I know what you're talking about.
And it was actually the first time in the film where I was like, I felt engaged. I was like, oh wow, now this film has me. But we were an hour and a half into the film at that point. And when you're an hour and a half into your film and it's like the first time you're making me feel anything, like that's just not a good sign for me. It was the first time in the film I actually wasn't really bored, I guess you could say. The other issue that I had was that I felt like every other scene was just like a minute long, just had like a minute long pause of like just a character staring out a window. Like there's a lot of moments in this film where it's just like quiet, and there's just someone like either they're sitting down, they're just staring off into the distance, and it just got to a point where I was like, all right, when we like gonna stop just watching characters look at nothing and just push our story forward?
I guess I didn't really see that. I don't really remember any of that. I would have to say the first segment of the movie was really interesting, and the last segment of the movie was really interesting. The middle was a little fuzzy. Now, I gave it a see it because of those first two segments, and I agree that in the middle, it was unclear. There was a lot of moments that were unclear, and you couldn't follow it. However, because of the first whatever it's called, the first segment and the last segment were strong for me, I say see it. Because it is a very interesting story, and you know, I feel for Rick. I felt for White Boy Rick.
Yeah, you know, I guess I could feel for him as much as you
Ultimately,
can. He was a drug dealer. He never killed anyone. He never hurt anybody, but he was one of the biggest drug dealers in Detroit when he got caught.
And I wish they had shown that more, because I didn't think that he was that big. I know that he was counting a lot of money, and when they were at his grandma's house, you could tell that there was a lot of money on the table, but I never got to that point that you're saying, that he was so big as a drug dealer that he ultimately deserved that jail time, whether you agree with that or not.
He's still in jail.
He's still in jail, but he's up for parole, and you know, I hope the best for him, but I didn't get the connection of why they gave him such a long sentence, but then you tell me now that he was the biggest drug dealer. However, in this,
well, it's just the laws. You get more time for being a drug dealer than you will for being a murderer.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous, but that's a whole different discussion, a whole different topic.
But I feel like that's what was pointed
But
out.
I
This
didn't
film
get that.
This
I
film
didn't
had like a
understand.
political bias to it.
I get it. Yeah, I get it, but I don't understand why he got that long of a sentence coming in not knowing anything about White Boy Rick. I didn't get why he got such a long sentence, so when I left, I was pissed at the FBI. You were like, this is crazy. This is nuts. To me, it only seemed like he was a drug dealer for a couple months. I mean, you're a drug dealer and you make a lot of money. You're a drug dealer, but...
Well, it's just possession. It's not even dealing, just having possession of it.
Like you say, murderers get shorter sentences, which is completely unfair. But again, that's a different topic.
Yeah.
For a different day, or not at all.
So, in my final thoughts, acting was fantastic. It looks great. It's beautifully shot. But for me, at the end, the cardinal sin for films is not... It's not that it wasn't interesting, but it just, the execution was boring for me. It was a 2-hour film that felt like it was 3 hours. And that, to me, is the cardinal sin. That's our timer. That's our 10 minutes. So,
I thought the movie was short.
So, just wrapping up my final thoughts. Cardinal sin of cinema going is that the worst thing you could do is bore me. And this film, more times than not, I felt the execution was lacking, and when I come out of a 2-hour film that felt like it was 3 hours, I have a hard time recommending that film. You obviously feel different, so your final thoughts?
Well, obviously there is a fine line of here of see it and don't see it. So you be the judge of that and comment below and tell us your thoughts. I'm giving in to you, and I'm looking at the camera. I feel good. High five.
All right.
Camera time.
That is this episode of 10 Minute Takes. If you like what you saw and you want to see more, subscribe. We have... Why do I keep on blanking on the name of this movie?
Simple favor. Simple favor.
A Simple Favor's next. So stay tuned. We got that one coming. Thanks for watching.
And comment. Who do you agree with? Me or him?